All right, guys, so much action over the weekend. The dust hasn't fully settled from free agency, but we still want your winners and losers. So, Jackie, we will start with you. Who is winning free agency?
Oh, to me, it is most definitely the Lakers. You had Dennis Schroeder, you had Montrezl Harrell. I haven't read anybody that saw that coming. And then you had one of my favorite NBA players of all time, Marc Gasol, who I know is a little older. He's not going to, his three-point shooting's fallen off, but he's still one of the smartest, most savviest defensive players in the league. I picture him guarding Jokic for the Lakers when it comes time. I also love what Portland did in Atlanta. Those are my two runners-up.
Well, Jackie, you're absolutely right. The Lakers are the biggest winner because of all the points you pointed out. But I love what the Celtics done, added Tristan Thompson to that roster and Jeff Teague. And then let's talk about the Phoenix Suns. They are winning big time, getting Chris Paul, adding a guy like Jay Crowder, adding another guy like Etwan Moore, who a lot of people don't value. I'm looking at this Phoenix Suns roster, and they look pretty damn good on paper. Also,
the Suns are such an exciting team going into this next season. It's so refreshing for Suns fans who have seen that team mismanaged for a very, very long time to be putting the right pieces together both last season and now going into this season. The Portland Trailblazers, I don't know how they could have done better considering what their roster is. The Lakers, phenomenal, considering especially that Montrezl Harrell is not only a good player to pick up, he's going to be better on your team than he was for the Clippers just because of the fit with Anthony Davis and some of the other players that can cover up for Montrez's weaker defensive issues. And then you also kind of weaken your opponent across the hallway, which I know is a big deal in Lakers-Clippers land, whether they admit it or not. And then I'm going to throw one more in there. I don't know if this is technically free agency. I'm just kind of lumping in the whole week with trades and the draft and everything else. But Philadelphia, Jackie, you and I have talked so often about the fit between Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons, and the biggest issue when having that discussion is who are the players around them. I don't know if we have the numbers 100%. From our researcher, Caesar, but if you look at these two guys when they were on the floor together just a couple years ago, they were plus 15. I mean, that you wouldn't look at that and say, God, those guys can't play together. They don't fit, because they had spacing. They had other guys around them. And then you look at each season since then and how the numbers have gone down. Well, they didn't change into different players. It's because of the players around them. So Daryl Morey did such a good job switching out the players around them. They're not there yet at an ideal roster, but the improvement, I think, is such a breath of fresh air for those two guys. They are in my winners category for the week at large. For the other side of the coin, though, Jackie, who are your losers?
Well, I'm going to stick in Los Angeles because, again, we talked about Montrezl Harrell walking across the hallway. He probably could just move his stuff from one locker to the next. I think that's a pretty big blow. And I'll tell you something that a lot of people aren't talking about, but they should be, is JaMychal Green going to the Nuggets for me is also a big loss for the Clippers. And remember, we were talking about Rajon Rondo going across the hall with his stuff to the other locker. Not so fast. He ended up going to the Hawks. So for me, the Clippers do not come out of this well. Here's the other thing. They did add Serge Ibaka, who I like. I probably like even a little better than Montrezl Harrell because of what he can do. But he is a player option for 2021, Rachel and Perk. That means that if things start to go sour, he, Kawhi, Paul George, they can all walk in 2021.
Well, my biggest loser is the Rockets. Here you got your two franchise guys asking to be traded right now, and you go out there and you sign Christian Woods. Look, Christian Woods is a good young player, but he's not moving the needle, and you let all these guys walk away and don't make any type of moves to make your stars happy, especially James Harden, to try to keep him. So right now, the biggest loser in free agency is the Houston Rockets. They're dropping the ball tremendously. But I would like to add one more thing. The Denver Nuggets are a loser right now to me because they lost Jeremy Grant. And I thought they should have did everything in their power to keep him, especially the way that he defends, his length, size, athleticism, and in the Western Conference where you need a guy like that to watch LeBron James, Kawhi Leonard, and all these athletic wings, even a Kevin Durant, and you let him walk away. I thought Denver really lost on that with losing Jeremy Grant.
Perk, I'm a little surprised to hear you put the Celtics in the winners category. I like the Tristan Thompson signing too. I think that it fills a need for them. I think that he will be a good, active, dedicated player for them, except for a few spots, relatively injury-free. But do you think that the Celtics roster got appreciably better? Would you put them as a winner, Jackie, or would you put them more as neutral?
I would not put him as a winner. Gordon Hayward walked away for nothing. And I'm telling you, people don't understand how important Gordon Hayward was to the Celtics. This is a guy who put aside his ego, put aside the number of shots. He was the best facilitator on that team last year. And the shots that he did make, he was very efficient. Now, I get that everybody looks at the dollar signs. Was he worth $34 million? Would I have paid him what the Charlotte Hornets paid him if I were the Boston Celtics? No, I wouldn't. But he still walked away without you getting anything for him. I don't consider that a win.
Yeah.
Well, I do.
Go ahead.
I do, Rachel and Jackie. I consider it a win because I'm going to tell you why. He walked away, and now give the keys to Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and you still have Kemba Walker. So you still have a big three, and then you add a guy to the bench like Jeff Teague, who's capable of giving you 15 to 16 points a night. And then you add Tristan Thompson, one of the best guys at the center position that can anchor a defense, switch 1 through 5, is a lob threat at the basket, a center that they've been missing that the Celtics been needing. He brings us a certain type of tenacity. So I understand losing Gordon Hayward was a little blow, but moving him out the way so that Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum could now flourish and take over, that's a huge win to me. And I really think that these guys could get it done.
Well, time will tell, Perk. If you're right, we'll see. It's a competitive Eastern Conference. You've got Brooklyn that we know will get better with Kevin Durant coming back and Kyrie healthy. We know Miami, they're going to be dogs, and we know Milwaukee is ready to run. So we'll see what that Eastern Conference looks like and where the Celtics fall in there. Coming up, guys, we're going to talk a little bit more about Donovan Mitchell because he got a max extension this weekend, but he can trigger, wait for this, a $32 million increase to that deal if he makes an All-NBA team this upcoming season. We'll talk about how realistic that is next. Stick around, get your answers ready.
Everyone else is not waiting. But this is a massively important issue because if Bam signs that max extension now, the Heat's cap situation is such that they might have to trade almost everybody up to and including Tyler Hero, according to Bobby Marks, who I checked with today, just to fit Giannis's supermax or Giannis's max or anybody else's max, should that come to pass. We don't know if that will even be an opportunity for them. So yeah, I think Fox, Tatum, and on, signing Donovan Mitchell, signing these contracts does put pressure on the Heat. I think the Heat and Bam and his team will meet this week, and we'll get news out of that meeting. And, Bam and Giannis actually have the same agent, so that's another tricky dynamic part to all this. We'll see how much pressure they exert.
Zach, I understand what you're saying, and I get it that, the Miami Heat still might have hopes that they could possibly land Giannis. But my grandpa used to tell me, you can never pass up some for show trying to get some more. And here it is, you have a young stud in Bam who was a first-time All-Star. The sky's the limit for him. He should get his paper. He deserves it. If you're the Miami Heat and you sign Myers Leonard to a 2-year, $20 million deal, and you look at a guy like Bam and what he did in his regular season and how he elevated his game in the playoffs, it's time to pay that man what he's worth. He deserves every single dollar. Let's get it done. Y'all need to make sure that he's one of the center points of the franchise, and don't depend on a what if, and take the for sure that's right there in front of your face, and that's Bam.
Okay, Perk, that's all well and good, but first of all, let's not compare Myers Leonard's situation to Bam, because that doesn't make any sense to me. If you're Bam and the Heat come to you and say, you are our cornerstone, we're going to take care of you, we swear, but we want to help you win a championship, and if you can be patient just a little longer, we want to see how this plays out so we can have Giannis next to you and you can win a championship together. I don't think that's unreasonable from a franchise point of view. Now, if it gets to a point where Bam and his agents say, listen, Fisher cut bait, then you have a decision to make. But to buy a little time here, Giannis hasn't made up his mind yet, as far as we know. We haven't certainly heard one way or another whether he's going to sign that Supermax. It's just prudent on everybody's part to wait a little longer.
Well, yeah, Jackie. I was just going to say, Perk, that Zach made the point that Giannis and Bam have the same agent. So there is someone involved here who is very familiar with Giannis's thinking. So I certainly understand the idea of not rushing into this over this past weekend until they see how things play out with Giannis and the Bucks over the course of the next few weeks. That being said, and Jackie, look, we can all look at the numbers and say, yes, it would be better for the Heat as an organization if they can have Bam wait. They do give him that full reward next offseason that will give them more flexibility if Giannis, or frankly, an opportunity for another big free agent comes in to help him in 2021. But with all the injuries you have seen around the league, major injuries to major players, if you were on the other side of that, as you point out, Jackie, really good speech from the Heat, very prudent, makes a lot of sense, would you still feel comfortable taking that risk?
Right. That's a fair point, and we'll have to wait and see. It really is a literally wait and see thing. And I'm not saying, you wait forever. If you're Bam and his agent, at some point, you're going to say, listen, we've tried to play this game with you, and now we need to get paid. And everybody would respect that.
Well, Jackie, I wasn't comparing Myles Leonard and Bam in that type of way. What I'm saying is, if you're going to compensate Myles Leonard to $10 million a year, then you definitely have to take in consideration and get one of your franchise centerpieces out the way. That's my point. I know Bam is probably ready, and this is the problem with guys like Bam and Giannis in this situation having the same agent, because you just never know. It could be so many hidden agendas behind this, and this is why sometimes agents lose clients, because they may lean towards one way and give one client bad advice to help another client out. So this is the sticky part of the situation when you're dealing with agents that have the same client and you dealing with hundreds of millions of dollars in an MVP type player.
But that's unavoidable, Perk. I mean, Kevin Durant's the only one I can think of that has one agent, Rich Kleiman, that has no other clients. Almost all of, I forget who your agent was, but I'm sure he had multiple clients. That's just how it works in the NBA.
To Rachel's point, if you ask Bam to wait, right? If you ask Bam to wait and say, we're going to give you all the money in a year, you better damn well mean it. You better mean it if he tears his Achilles, God forbid. You better mean it if he has a bad season by his standards or something like that. You better give him everything, because to Rachel's point, I see no reason for any player to wait when the money is there for them. Bam has earned it by any standard. His playoff performance, he's an all-NBA level player. He has earned it. So if you say you wait, you better mean it. You better give it to him no matter what.
Yeah, and look, I actually think it's to Bam's advantage in this case that he has the same agent as Giannis, Perk. I would say that gives him a window into the thinking of the big domino piece that might be affecting his situation. So I think it's actually good for Bam that Alex is both the agent for him and for Giannis, but it is interesting, and it is a case of what might be best for the team big picture versus what might be best for the player, which then again the next offseason turns into what's also best for the player who wants to compete with the team to win a championship. So it's all interwoven and a problem that the Heat are going to have to work out. Zach Lowe, thank you so much for joining us. Has been great having